If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. The Warrior of Light and Tepiki don't run into the Justiciar, but they do manage to capture one of the plant creatures that he's always fighting. Instead of finishing it off, the two of you take it over to the alchemist at the Great Work so they can examine the thing. It doesn't take long for them to discover that the thing isn't exactly your run-of-the-mill plant creature. Somebody had used some chemicals to make it grow really fast. Those chemicals also make the creatures a lot more violent to the point where all thoughts of self-preservation are thrown out of the window. The specific ingredients that are needed to make this plant version of HGH cost way more money than the average person has. So the Justiciar, if he's the one who's creating these creatures, must be very, very rich. Someone with that type of money probably wouldn't go out to gather the ingredients themselves, which means talking to some merchants who have close ties to the alchemist might be your best bet. That works out better than either of you could have hoped for, because one of the merchants turns out to be the guy's father, something he reveals when he accidentally calls the Justiciar by his real name, Virazahn. Virazahn stole the materials to make the plant growth potion and the maps that have helped him learn the area around Thavnir from his father, and he's been using those to create his fake hero persona. The man had always fantasized about being a hero from the time he was a little kid, so since he was interested, his father had paid a lot to have him train with a bow and arrow so he'd have the skills needed to try and make his dream a reality. He got pretty good, but he wasn't exactly the hard-working type, so he never put in the effort to become anything special. He tried to skip the steps and sought to buy fancy equipment and potions and stuff to make him look like a big-time adventurer, which annoyed his dad to the point where he gave his son some money and kicked him out of his house. He hadn't seen him for years after that, not until he showed up to his house calling himself the Justiciar. He said his heroic deeds during their time apart had caught the attention of the Passage of the Unbound, and they had helped him get enough power to outdo all of the heroes of the world in exchange for his money. They obviously let him join just to pay their bills, because Virazahn is clearly a moron. But after you tell his father who the Unbound actually are, he decides to tell the Radiant Host what he knows if it will help stop his son. Once the truth about who the Justiciar really is starts to spread, his popularity starts to drop, but not by much, since facts never really matter much to fanatics. He's recently been seen handing out letters to some of his supporters. Whatever the letters are, they probably say something that you should know, so the Warrior of Light and Tepiki head to Virazahn to see if they can get their hands on one of those letters. It turns out that he's been trying to get his most devoted followers to meet him somewhere, and it also turns out that the person who knows where he is the same guy who sold Estinian a map after the final days came to an end. He's still doing shady business, which is good for you, since he recently had a guy come by who was looking for a map into Uznair. The merchant sold him every map that he owned, saying that he didn't know which one would lead him where he wanted to go, but he knew that he had the map that he actually needed. He figures Virazahn found the one he wanted since the letters he's been handing out have a copy of the map on them. There will probably be a few not-so-savory types crashing the meeting though, since the merchant has heard that some of the bandits in the area don't like the Justiciar all that much. His escapades have interrupted a few of their thieving operations, so they've been looking for an opportunity to get rid of the guy. The merchant doesn't know the exact spot where the meeting's supposed to be, but it is somewhere out in the Shroud of Samga, so you go to let Tepiki know, and the two of you head out there. There are quite a few people heading to this secret meeting, so it's not exactly hard for you to follow one of them to the right place. The meeting clearly went poorly, because when you get there, most of the people are either scared or injured, and some really big rocks are laying around Virazahn. He recognizes the Warrior of Light because there aren't many people in the world who don't, but for some reason he expected you to be nicer to him despite the fact that you're traveling around with one of the people he robbed. The guy's an idiot, and once Tepiki reveals his real name, he decides to stop hiding his face, since it will make it easier for him to get famous if people know what he looks like. He hadn't actually attacked the people who had come to the meeting on purpose. Some of them who had shown up weren't actually his supporters. They had attacked him and the artifact had responded. A lot of power starts to flow into Virazahn when the Warrior of Light gets ready to attack him, and before she can, a lot of rocks fall, separating the man from you. He does want to fight the Warrior of Light, which is more proof that he's an idiot, but he wants to do it in a better location, so he takes off, leaving his supporters behind. Once he's gone, they let you know exactly what happened when the meeting had started. Virazahn had done his usual speech about being the hero of Thavnir before he got to the topic of how angry he was about all of the rumors that were being spread about him. He had called the meeting so he could get everyone there to head out and start working on fixing his reputation. That was around the time where two of the people who had snuck into the meeting to hurt him attacked. When they did, the rocks started falling on them and everyone else in the room. They had fallen right up until the Warrior of Light and Topeki had shown up. While Virazahn did attack everyone in the room, he hadn't started the fight, so he wasn't exactly doing anything wrong. The people who tried to kill him, however, did, so Topeki gives them the option of turning themselves into the Radiant Host or fighting her and the Warrior of Light. Most people would choose jail time over having their soul and body separated, so they turn themselves in while everyone else heads off to get medical attention. One thing Topeki did notice was the size of the rocks that Virazahn had summoned this time around. They were way bigger than the other ones, which could mean he's learning to control his powers better or something else has happened. After the meeting incident, no one sees any signs of Virazahn, but Topeki does get a bit of good news. Her mother sent her a letter saying that her dad's awake and he's made it to Tuliyollal. She would go to see him, but she's about to go out with the Radiant Host to hunt for Virazahn, so she wants you to go and talk to her father and see if he knows anything about the Perch's power, since he is the one person who spent the most time with it. Suhei isn't surprised to see that you came back to Toral alone, since her daughter isn't the type to get sidetracked once she has something she's focused on. And while her husband Netsi had been in the city, he didn't stay long since he's eager to help his daughter in any way that he can. He's gone off to the forest to try and find some info on how the Perch works, so once his wife points you in the right direction, you go to check on him. You find the man while he's facing a very large owl. The thing hadn't attacked him yet, so you deal with it before it gets the chance to, since Netsi clearly hasn't fully recovered from his injuries. He's heard word about what you and Topeki have been dealing with, and even though he was the guardian of the Perch, he hadn't known about its abilities, so he started trying to learn more about the creature that was sealed inside of it. It had started out as an owl before it ascended, and the creatures tend to keep some traits from their original form, so he figured trading a few punches with the owls would teach him something about the Perch. None of the owls can summon rocks though, so that was clearly a talent that it got after it transformed. What he did notice is that the owls never attacked first. They only get aggressive when something threatens them, but the minute it gets scared, it gets very violent, and the more scared it gets, the more ferocious its attacks are, which could explain why Virazahn is able to use the Perch without any effort. The thing turns on when something threatens him, and it stays on until he's out of harm's way. That will make him hard to beat even by someone as strong as the Warrior of Light, because the stronger his opponent, the more afraid he will be, which could cause the relic to pull an entire mountain down around him. According to the story of how the creature inside of the relic was beaten, the thing wasn't killed by any hunter. It got so afraid that its powers went out of control and it killed itself on accident. That could happen to Virazahn, which I'm pretty sure no one would lose any sleep over, except for the fact that he might bring down the entire city of Virazahn with him, which is a bit of a bigger problem, so you head back to the city to let Topeki know what you learned. Before you get the chance to tell her anything, Virazahn shows up in the city and proves just how out of touch he is, by claiming that he's going to become the king of Virazahn because he thinks he'll make a better leader than Vritra. Absolutely no one, not even his own father, thinks that makes sense, and the Radiant Host thinks that this would be the perfect time to lock the guy up, right up until boulders start falling out of the sky. Not wanting to cause a fight in a place where the death toll would be catastrophic, everyone lets Virazahn leave. The fact that he didn't seem worried in the least despite being surrounded by enemies proves to the Warrior of Light that he does understand the relic's powers. Once you explain to Topeki what her father figured out, she finally understands why Virazahn would be so eager to fight the Warrior of Light when he knows he has absolutely zero chance of winning. Being the target of one of the strongest people on the planet should let him draw out the full power of the relic, but since he doesn't know how the creature inside of it ended up offing itself, Topeki thinks that giving him the fight he wants is the best way to put an end to this whole thing, as long as it happens far away from people. Topeki gets the Radiant Host to help find a battlefield that will keep innocent people out of harm's way, and it doesn't take too much effort to get Virazahn to come out there. He seems extremely confident right up until the fighting starts. Then he realizes that while he calculated his odds of winning, it turns out that he was really bad at math. He gets so scared that the relic overloads and starts to go out of control, so he tries to run away and gets knocked unconscious by a rock that should have killed him. Without the relic, he's absolutely no threat to anyone, but that doesn't stop the Radiant Host from locking him up while you and Topeki head back to Tuliyollal. Her parents are happy to see her back home, but while they want to lock the relic away like they did in the past, she thinks it'll be better if people knew what the relic was capable of and learned how to use it properly just in case they need it. Her father thinks that might lead to one of their own people deciding to steal the thing for their own purposes, but Topeki is pretty sure that telling people how that ended for Virazahn will be enough of a deterrent. After a while, her father starts to think that it's not a bad idea, and Topeki will be the perfect person to get the process started since she's now the one person who knows more about the relic than anyone else. This concludes the story of Dawntrail's caster role quest. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, comment, share it, and subscribe. Grab a copy of my novel on your way out, and I'll see you all next time.